Hey guys, long time no see. This time we'll finish what we started off with this master grade DOM kit. If you want to check out my review of this kit, I'll put it on the screen here. This video will focus more on the specific steps I took to finish the kit instead of pointing out the actual issues. Anyways, let's get to it. I'm not much of a designer myself. I kind of have no sense of beauty, so a lot of times I like to look at examples of other people's work prior to starting mine. This time, luckily, I had this model Graphix magazine around, and this specific issue is dedicated to the updated master grade DOM, featuring a lot of great works from Japanese modelers. Immediately, I'm getting a lot of great ideas, such as how these red accents have been added to this kit, the panel lines on the legs, and how they turn the seam line back here into a panel line. We got this cool Naoki design of the prototype DOM that's, again, proving my theory that Naoki really loves straight edges, and a lot more custom DOM types. Overall, I really recommend these Japanese hobby magazines. Now, the decal examples from this magazine are nice, but the kit already comes with a simple sheet of water slides, so we should probably not waste any money buying any additional decals. Hey, Kami Gunpla here. I got this G rework decal sheet from the master grade DOM. Got a lot of cool details here, including the black TriStar logo, so we'll be using this sheet. In the last video, I talked about the seam lines on these leg parts. There's really no good way to remove this. The seam line is intended to be right on the edge, so hopefully you won't notice it. But I think accentuating the line to make it into an actual split, like in the magazine, might be the way to go. In order to do that, I'm just scraping the edges with a knife, and you see how the armor looks like two distinctively separate pieces now. We got very large continuous parts in this kit, some from a very old mold, which means we got a lot of uneven surfaces. I would recommend sanding all of the larger pieces with high grit sand sponges to check for unevenness. In this case, I'm using 800 grit. If the unevenness is light, you can get rid of it just by sanding, but if there are situations where there are significant dips in parts, well, you'd have to fix with some sort of a filler, in my case, super glue. I also got this really nasty dip under the chin, which took a couple of rounds of gluing and sanding to get rid of. After sanding, some of the edges on parts might disappear, and we can get them back by scraping with a knife. The hobby knife can really come in handy as a versatile sanding tool. This kit has a lot, and I mean a lot, of empty spaces. More so than even on a modern high-grade kit, so we really need to add details by scribing. I like to plan my scribing by drawing onto the part with a pencil first. This way you can make quick changes as you go. I'm using a combination of 0.2, 0.4, and 0.7mm lines to have some variety, as well as raised PLA plate details. I wanted to thank this little tool from MatWorks. A lot of these parts required curved panel lines parallel to the edges, so this tool makes doing that a lot easier. I also designed some 3D printed details. These parts go on the shoulders since the shoulders are very empty. The panel lines on these parts aren't super clear since they came out of a 3D printer, so you need to go over them with a thin chisel. The shoulders are curved, so I'm filling in the gaps with a bit of white super glue. This white super glue is really nice. It's got this rubbery filler inside, so it cures into a flexible texture that's very similar to plastic, so very easy to work with. I got this one part for the side of the skirts, and I got these little vent parts for the back of the skirt. I've had a lot of questions on my painting methods, so I'll explain it here again. I use a multi-staged shading technique to have a lot more subtly shaded look. I start out with the shaded color, so a tinge darker than the intended color, and paint it onto the entire part in regular viscosity. Then onto the main color, which is made by adding white to the shaded color. A lot of people like to start with the main color, then adding black to make the shaded color, but check this out. Here I have two gradients with the same middle color. On the left, the darker color is made by adding black to the middle color, and on the right, the main color is made by adding white to the darker color. Notice how the right image looks significantly more vibrant. This is how I achieve my very subtly shaded look that you've seen from my previous builds. The left image here can still look great, it's just going to look significantly smokier than the right, which is also a great look, especially if you're intending to do heavy weathering. It can be a little difficult to imagine the main color when you have to mix the shaded color first. What you can do is use one of these paint mixer websites to play around with the paints to know what direction you want to go with the shaded paint. Okay, now back to painting. First, I'm diluting the main color down by half from the regular viscosity. I pre-thin all my paints at around a 1:3 ratio, and here I'm adding equal amount of thinner to pre-thin paint, so it's more like a 1:7 ratio at this point. I need to spray this at very low pressure, so to make sure that this paint is thin enough to flow out at low pressure, I usually test it on a spoon. This goes down to the middle of each surface, covering about 2/3 of the surface. You want to leave enough of the shade, otherwise you won't even be able to see the shaded effect at the end. Now I'm adding more white to the paint to make a highlighted color, and that goes on a bit thinner than the main paint to the very center of each surface. At this stage, the part can look horribly wrong, but hang in there. This is because the transitions between the three colors aren't smooth enough. What you would need to do is paint over the entire part at low viscosity, low pressure with the main color, and that ties all three colors in very nicely. In order to make all the details pop, you gotta do a lot of color separations. I'm adding little metallic details to the frame, although no one will ever be able to see these after I assemble everything. It's sometimes difficult to do subtle color separations between two similar colors with shading. One trick here is adding gray. For example, for this purple, I add a light gray to create a less saturated purple. So in this case, you can see the purple separations very clearly. Truth be told, I've skipped out on every single one of these little master grade dudes this entire time, but since now I'm on camera, I have to actually paint it. It kind of sucks how my first time is on a mold from literally the 90s, so this figure has significantly less details than the ones you see nowadays. The body shape also doesn't really match any of the black tri-stars, which is kind of a shame. The decal sheet here are significantly harder to apply than anything that I've ever encountered. G Rework's quality is still top notch. It's just that a lot of these graphics are huge, so they tend to fold during application. I would say just keep the surface wet and maybe don't use mark setter since that makes the decal harder to nudge. And apply decal softener on top of the decal afterwards to make it sit flush. In addition to decals, I'm also adding a bit of metal etching details. I'm doing this step after the matte coat to keep all these parts shiny. Adding metal etching details is a great way to deal with the empty round details. Now lastly, the LEDs. This kit has a lot of clear parts and thrusters, so the most obvious way to make things pop is by adding LEDs to everything. Now, the topic is a bit heavy to cover in this video, and I'm working on programming a little light show as well, so I think making a separate video on specifically LED tutorial might be better, where I go over basic electrical knowledge so you can apply the technique to other kits. One thing that I will mention here is that these back thrusters, the original ones look very weak, so I'm replacing them with metal parts, but I needed a way to diffuse lights with these. I printed these clear plates to fit inside the thrusters to diffuse these lights. The nice thing here is that this kit has a very puffy skirt, so it's very good for hiding my hideous cable management job here. Anyways, that's about it. Let's take a look at the result. So hopefully y'all like that breakdown. This kit took a lot of time, both on the amount of work and just other things going on in my life, but I'm very happy with the result. I think after this I'm going to build some easy high grades as a palette cleanser, maybe like a Witch from Mercury kit while the topic's still hot, and the LED tutorial will come after that, so definitely stay tuned for all those things. Anyways, like and comment on the video to let me know what you think, and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys next time.